and Miguel with the Minnesota Research Link. Right now, we're going to be meeting with Pastor Eric Hansen and Kristen Dierks. We're going to be discussing their Community Health Awareness Coalition. Pastor Eric, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Eric Hansen, Pastor Eric Hansen. I currently live and work in Goodhue, Minnesota at a church called St. Luke Lutheran Church. I'm a pastor ordained in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. This is currently my third church. Previously to living here, I served in Tokyo, Japan, and then in Sammamish, Washington, which is a suburb of Seattle. And now I'm here, married, have two kids, 9 and 11 years old, and just really interested. I've always been interested in the intersection of spirituality and mental health. And so the Community Health Awareness Coalition that kind of lives in that intersection was very appealing to me. And that's how I got involved in all this stuff.
Thanks for sharing. Kristen, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Kristen Dierks, also from Goodhue, Minnesota, and work for Goodhue County Court Services Juvenile Probation Officer as well. And along with family history, my job currently, we are very much well aware of mental health struggles and what that brings and what that looks like in families. And so my interest has always lied with how best we can support each other and ourselves in the walk of life, right, and in the process. And with doing so, I think along with other community members that were interested in the same and really getting involved in how best we can support each other, the coalition formed. And so given what I do and also my history, and this was very intriguing to me, and so jumped on board with the rest of the crew.
Thank you for sharing. Can you guys, Pastor, can you share with us a little bit, how did the idea of this coalition come up?
Yeah, so it was back in March or April of last year, it would be 2022, when a local priest in town, Father Thomas McCabe, who serves 3-Point Parish, but one of the points is in Goodhue, Holy Trinity, noticed that his Wednesday night catechism classes were competing a little bit with extracurriculars that started to happen around the same time. And Goodhue has had a long tradition of Wednesday nights and Sundays being downtime for families to do either faith formation or spend time as families, or it just wasn't a time people scheduled things. And he noticed a creep into that time, which he considered kind of sacred space. So he called me and said, "Hey, I've noticed this thing. Have you noticed this thing?" We've had a kind of a good relationship. We're both new to the area as far as ministry in the area. And I said, "Yeah, I've noticed that thing too." And we called another local Lutheran pastor and talked. And between the three of us, decided we should gather some community members and talk about this sacred space that if we don't protect it might be gone. All of us have come from, I should mention, all of us came from other areas, the three clergy members, where that sacred space was not held. And so we thought, well, this is kind of special here. So we gathered people together, and the conversation quickly grew beyond just protecting sacred space on Wednesdays and Sundays for downtime and faith formation, to the faith ramifications of that, to also the mental health ramifications of that. Previous to coming to Goodhue, when I served in Sammamish, Washington, the context there was such that they were trying to draw back time for families, especially youth, to have space in the week where there's not homework or a sport or a club, or the youth had lost downtime. And through some correlation, some correlation, not causation, kind of looking at statistics, things that they had done, they determined one of the causes might be that the youth were overstructured. Families and youth were overstructured. And so they were trying to pull that back. And from that experience, I let our team know it's really important for us to think about how we protect space for kids, youth, and families to have time to be kids, youth, and families, to gather around dinner tables, to not be going to the next thing, to not be achieving the next thing, to not be merit-based in all of our time, to have time to go catch frogs, to have time to sit, to pray, to talk, to think, to worship. And Goodhue already does well with that. So we started the conversation about, well, how do we help our community understand the need to protect that, not only for those who claim a faith tradition, but also for those for whom that sacred space of quiet time, downtime, family time, catching frogs, or whatever they might do with it, is important for our whole community's mental health and kind of just cohesion together as a community.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kristen, I was going to ask you, how did you become aware of this group or initiative in your end?
How did I become aware?
Yeah, aware and then part of it.
So parents, the conversation just in the community started when we were at activities or just in passing. There were a couple of adults that had been speaking to the pastor and talking about protecting that sacred space and what things could look like and who else could we bring on board to help protect that or to help disseminate the message of what those protective factors look like. And so in conversation, when somebody was just explaining to me those first few meetings together and that what their ideas were, just given my history and my background, it was very intriguing to me. And through friends and then community members in church, this felt very much like something that I wanted to be involved in and contribute to and add support as much as I could.
Awesome.
Thanks. Kristen, Pastor Eric, can you tell us a little bit about who your community partners are?
Yeah, we have 3 churches involved. St. Luke Lutheran, ELCA Church, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. St. John's Lutheran Church and Preschool, which is part of the Wells tradition, Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod, if I have the acronym right. And then Holy Trinity Catholic Church, together then with I can't say that because we are religious organizations, I can't say that the local school is an official partner, but the superintendent and a couple of school board members have been part of our team. And then lots of parents, community members who are parents and are interested in what creates the sacred space and in different ways to create relationships and space for spiritual and positive spiritual and mental well-being. I'm trying to think, Kristen, have I forgotten anybody? Who am I forgetting?
Sure. Well, to add on to that as well, when we're lucky enough to have the connections that we do with community members and kind of expand it out into the county. And that being said, we were able to partner up with the Goodhue County Mental Health Coalition and Ruth Greenslade and Maggie Chihos as part of that, and kind of bring in what the county assessment looks like from a mental health perspective, and then also just in partnership and collaboration, their interest lies within, you do have something unique and special in Goodhue, and there is something to be said about what is kind of the inner workings are, and we are very interested in how we're able to bring that out into the other cities in the counties. And not to say that other spaces don't have that same unique feel, but just at the county level, they have the interest in it, given the roles that they are both in too. The other organization I think is worth mentioning is NAMI, who were also going to take part in that mental health forum and also offer their support in any capacity that they are able to as well.
Okay. So I have another question, but I think you already kind of addressed it, which is how did your group become interested in community mental health? I guess you already addressed that at the beginning, but what about what I have another one here. It says, what do you hope your group accomplish in Goodhue? What would be the end goal? Or
That's an awesome question.
It is a great question.
I think like right now, we've been focused primarily on awareness, on the whys behind the whats, why protect sacred space for families, youth, and whatnot to have downtime, time to pray, time to think, time to be, how that contributes to positive spiritual and mental well-being. One thing that our community awareness forum did, I think, for the community was two things, I should say. And I'm going to say too much, and then Kristen's not going to have anything to say, and I'm going to have to apologize, but I'll try to keep this short.
Go right ahead.
First, just awareness of the different resources, and Kristen can talk to that because that was she contributed a ton about resourcing the community, but different resources that are available for people who are struggling with mental health. One thing that we all learned, I think, pretty clearly from the county was how communities like ours can be upstream of mental health challenges by continuing to foster strong relationships between adults and kids, which is super cool for churches to hear, because that's one thing that we try to do really well. And I think the second piece the forum did was mental health seems to be talked about more now than previous to the forum and then after. It's now like we can talk about it, and there's people talking about it. Like Kristen said, she heard about this thing from parents in kind of social settings.
Yeah.
What I think is kind of cool is I've had a couple of conversations with some people in the last few weeks who have recently accessed therapy, and I think it's because they've heard, like Goodhue is talking about that. We can say we're trying to, and we found a therapist and it's going well. So I think that's been a benefit.
So removing some of the stigma.
Yeah.
And awareness.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll pass it over to Kristen, see what she's seen.
Yeah, I would absolutely say that part of what I think can be accomplished and has already laid the groundwork for that is exactly like Miguel just stated, is reducing that stigma. And then like Pastor Eric mentioned, increasing the knowledge and the awareness that there is something special and protected that we have going on, and also how that contributes to mental health well-being enough to I guess enhance people's willingness to participate and continue supporting each other and not only in our own community but to spread out eventually as well. And then getting that knowledge and that base of information that maybe there is a little bit more going on here, and maybe there is something to this. I think is always helpful to lay the groundwork first, and then continue to grow from there. And so I think there are a few loose goals that the group had as kind of bigger picture, but I think as everything continues to move forward from the forum and on, some of the things that we want to accomplish, I don't think have been named yet or determined yet, because time will tell as well, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How are you planning on increasing awareness?
Yeah, our next project, we're gonna write a series of articles for a couple of the newspapers that circulate locally in our area and then some of the neighboring towns on it'll be topics picked by team members, coalition members. Some of them might be why create sacred space and continue to in lives of kids and families. What is the intersection between positive spirituality and mental well-being? How does a positive spiritual life foster a healthy, or give protective factors for a healthy mental life? I'd like to do an article on adult adolescent relationships and how adult adolescent kind of mentor relationships also work really well in fostering positive mental and spiritual well-being. So we're going to do, that series of articles for our local papers. Don't have a time frame for it yet, but a little more awareness creation through that kind of writing by some of the coalition members. This next project.
Part of that too, if I can add a little bit onto that, is that going back to the collaborations, right, and the connections that we have made, there is interest there. And so part of increasing that knowledge and awareness is utilizing our resources and continuing to connect people with people, right? And so when that happens, those conversations happen, even if it's not formal. Even if it's not formalized, there's still a seed planted in the informal conversations too, and those informal connections as well.
Yeah,
What
so
would you-
word of mouth is,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, I was just gonna say, what would you say to somebody who's watching this video and they want to get involved, or they want to start something in their own community if they see a need? What would you recommend somebody?
Go ahead,
Connection.
because I've talked first every time. You go first.
Connection. I think connect up with people that also have a similar passion or also see a similar need. I think that sometimes things get overwhelming or daunting to do alone, but even one other person that you can start the conversation with, and then just start talking to people and start having the conversation, right? I think that at its base, being willing to have the conversation.
Thank you, because I think that's the key for, mobilizing community, grassroots organization. When you start with a conversation, could be just meeting somebody, have a coffee, and you share something like you mentioned that you have a passion for, and hopefully that sparks something, a change in a community.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of piggybacking off of what Kristen said. I think what we've noticed is the more people you involve, like the better ideas you have, and then the more resources just kind of find their way in there. Specifically the partnership with the county, that didn't become a possibility until, like Kristen said, somebody told her about this group, and then she showed up and had the right connections that we could make with the county. And I can't remember who invited the superintendent of the school in, but that was a connection made in a conversation. And so the partnerships kind of came together as people shared the conversation. I think one of the most useful things we had was somebody just kind of, a couple people beating the drum saying, well, let's meet again and keep talking. And every time we did, there were new voices in the room.
We underestimate that power of connection, right? And you think that there's so much hard work that it feels daunting at first, but you start talking, and like Eric said, another person comes in, and then another person comes in, and then another person comes in, and you may not realize what that person does or who that person knows, and so it all unfolds just kind of magically, if I can use that word. And that's part of the reason why I say we don't necessarily have a super clear idea of what the future is going to look like, because I think it's going to unfold the way that is necessary and the most helpful and beneficial.
And I've been in part of groups or conversations sometimes where community members think they cannot participate or bring something to the table, but everybody has a skill that they can, or life experience that they can share, and that can have an impact. And somebody else. So I will encourage everybody who's watching this video to take this as an example for, start something in your own community. Like you said, just by starting a conversation, and the power of partnerships can mobilize and make changes.
Yeah, I think if and I don't know if it's an advantage or a crutch, but I think if we have an advantage, it's that we have no clear, this person's the leader, and what this person says, we do that. The two ideas we've moved forward with have been just essentially the best ideas in the room, and the ones that kind of had the energy around them. There was no formal decision-making process other than, this sounds good. What does everybody else think? Okay, let's do that next.
Yeah.
So maybe the disadvantage is that there will be no probably world-conquering systemic agenda. It'll be a series of good ideas we follow through on, as long as there's energy to keep following through, is my guess.
Mhm.
Well, thank you.
What challenges do you foresee, and how can the community or the listeners on this help you overcome that?
Well, I think Pastor Eric just mentioned
Yeah.
one, and that being said, the energy to keep moving forward. I think sometimes that is what stops action, or action plans. But I think that when you have people that are committed to really doing well and doing better, then the best intentions are there, and there's willingness to pass it on to somebody that does have the energy or the capacity to keep on moving forward. And so even in those challenges, to not be discouraged, because I think the answers and the solutions always reveal themselves. It's just a matter of being open-minded and listening.
Yeah, I think endurance is the word I was thinking of when Kristen was talking. I can't remember who told me a long time ago. Somebody said there's problems to solve, and there's tensions to manage. And mental health is always a tension. It's not a problem you solve. It's a tension you manage, and you put energy and ministry towards, and you can only do that as long as there's energy there. Having worked on a number of group and collaborative projects in my time as a pastor, the people's energy ebbs and flows. And someone who might be really passionate on day one, in 12 months, they're passionate about something else. And so kind of keeping that core of folks who want to keep beating the drum, asking what's our next step. And, also discerning if there comes a time when, okay, we've done what we can, we're not there yet, but yeah, I think endurance is probably going to be our greatest challenge, maintaining the focus.
Where can people learn about your program, or where can they reach out to you guys?
Good question. Since we have no centralized form of leadership, they could email myself or Father Thomas McCabe, who sometimes checks his email. He's awesome. They could email Kristen. We all have kind of a good finger on the pulse of the group. I think at this point, anybody I'm missing that you can think of, Kristen, who would be a good person to connect with? Evan Goff, our school superintendent, has been to all the meetings and been involved in all the projects.
And we can share you guys' email on the post this video, and people can reach out to you with questions, or they want to get involved or learn. Also, if they want to create a group in their own community, just to, sometimes when you share lessons learned, sometimes that's the purpose for one meeting, and that can save you a lot. So communicate with each other. If you guys are seeing this video, call somebody who's already going through those things and can save you a lot of time. So
Yeah. Is there anything you guys would like to add that we haven't discussed yet?
I think I just add to that, one of the I think truly holy things that's come out of the experience so far too is not just the goals of more awareness around what fosters mental health in the community, things like that. But we have 3 churches, a school, and a county kind of working together, and usually we're all siloed, you know. And I think it's been cool to be part of something. It just creates more open lines of communication. I wasn't even have worked here for about 2 years, and I wasn't aware of all the county resources around mental health. I mean, I think every pastor, when they move to town, should get a packet that says, here are county resources. People walk in your office and say, I need therapy for this or counseling for this. It's like, well, let me show you my packet. But this thing gave me a packet, you know. So little bit of community connection that might not have otherwise happened. Been helpful for me.
Yeah. Kristen, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, always be willing to utilize your resources. Then making those connections and being willing to make those connections, having the conversations. I think they're most important things in addressing anything with mental health and the awareness around it. Well-being in general. There are with creativity, I guess I would say, there is a resource for everything.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. And for those watching, again, this is Pastor Eric Hansen and Kristen Dierks. They are with the Community Health Awareness Coalition in Goodhue. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Most definitely. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.